Hi there, and welcome back to the Energy Sector Heroes podcast. My name is Michelle Fraser, and every week I will speak with incredible people who share their lessons, experiences, and stories from their time spent in the energy sector. Hi there, and welcome back again to this week's episode. If you're new to the show, then please take a second to subscribe and even consider sharing this show with just one other person. This week, I am joined by Kate Allen. Kate is an incredible petrochemical product manager with over a decade of software as a service leadership experience, which I have no idea what that is, actually. We're going to try and find out, actually. Kate, would you like to introduce yourself, please?
Yes. Thank you so much for having me, Michelle. My name's Kate Allen, and like Michelle said, I am a petrochemical product manager for True Solutions, which is a US-based software organization. So we consult with companies in the energy sector about ways to digitalize their maintenance and inspection processes.
Okay. That is interesting. With the software as a service, what is actually that?
Yeah, so a software as a service means, we provide software as well as consultative services to our customers on a kind of ongoing monthly license fee type of basis. So, you pay us monthly for like a subscription, so to speak. And in exchange for that, you get access to our digitalized reports that can be used on iPads, tablets, or web-based devices, maybe kind of in the industrial process space where you're used to doing things on pen and paper and then transcribing them into Word documents or Excel spreadsheets. We like to kind of eliminate that report writing and documentation step and let these field service technicians, whether they be service techs or inspectors or engineers or members of a maintenance team, spend more of their time in the field where they belong, where they add value, doing the things that they want to do, as opposed to sitting behind a desk, writing reports and, messing with PDFs and Microsoft Word and things like this all day long.
Okay. How did you get into that sort of area?
Yeah, so I have been in software about all of my career. I don't want to tell you I don't want to date myself by telling you how long that's been. But I started working in the third-party staffing and recruiting space and kind of human resource type things. And then I was drawn to True and the kind of problem solving that went into working in industrial processes. And that was all very new to me. And after about a year or so there, we were approached by, a super major global refiner to solve some of the problems that they were facing in the energy sector. And it just really grabbed my attention. And I've kind of been sitting in that seat ever since.
Okay. So was it a conscious decision for you to move over to work in that area?
It was. Yeah, very, very much so. It was uncomfortable and very foreign to me. Like I said, I had always worked in staffing and human resources, much more desk jobs, right? IT staffing, recruiting, things like that. So this was all very foreign to me, but the problems that this industry in particular were facing seemed much greater and of much more importance than what I was currently working on. So I kind of took a leap of faith and entered the industry. Okay.
So you didn't work in the energy sector before then. So how did you get started then?
Yeah, so the company that I work for, True Solutions, at the time, it was called True QC. And actually, a couple of friends of mine from college had started this company because they worked primarily in industrial coatings. And they were up against a ton of challenges in terms of compliance. And, they were going to have their licenses yanked because they weren't submitting the proper reports that they needed to stay within compliance and keep their licenses. So the first iPad had just come out, and they thought maybe there's something that we can do with this, right? Because we have all these great foremen in the field who are excellent painters, right? They do a tremendous job in blasting and coating and painting, but they're not great report writers. So they developed, an app for the new iPad 1 so that these guys could fill out the report as they completed each task, mark as complete, take photos, note kind of any nonconformances that they came across, and do that throughout the day, as opposed to at the end of a very long day in a very hazardous environment, being forced to go and sit at a desk for 3 additional hours and rack their brain to remember everything that they had done that day, and anything that jumped out at them as, needing additional attention.
Okay.
So kind of in talking with them and learning about what kind of problems they were trying to solve in these spaces, my prior software knowledge kind of kicked in, and I immediately started, trying to problem solve for an industry that I was really unfamiliar with. And I think that sometimes that outside opinion is really what people need.
Okay. Did you find that your skills in the IT industry, was it transferable? Did you find it difficult to pick up the work in the oil industry?
There were certainly technical skills that were transferable from one industry to the other, but I did have, and I still do have, a lot to learn about the energy sector and about the challenges that they face and about the way that they work. But, I think especially when it comes to the human element of rolling out software and trying to streamline processes and improve efficiency, the challenges are kind of universal. So whether you're doing software for accountants or doctors or energy sector professionals, the human part is always very much the same, right? People innately don't like change, and they aren't always quick to see that something that doesn't necessarily help them directly can have indirect benefits to their entire organization or the industry at large.
Okay. So what is the most challenging problem that you've worked on?
Well, so probably developing a software solution for an HF alky unit, right? So for API 751, which is the alky unit turnaround for those flanges and valves, that is certainly the most complicated industrial process that I've encountered. There's so many nuances and so many parties that are involved: planners and schedulers and inspectors and contractors and maintenance contractors and mechanical contractors and engineers. All of these people trying to work on something collaboratively around the clock in a caustic environment with a very, very well-defined start and end time, right? Learning that process and the role that each individual group plays in that process was probably the most challenging project that I've worked on thus far. But I can say that, I did that for the first time in 2018. I think I was also about 8.5 months pregnant when that project started. So there was a lot going on. But, looking back and having now implemented that solution for multiple customers at multiple facilities, I can say that I think it's my favorite of our product offerings. And I get excited every time I get to reconfigure that for a new customer, or someone comes to me with a new challenge. I really love that product and that process.
Okay. So how do you go about solving new problems that a customer comes with you?
Yeah, everyone has a problem statement, right? So what is the problem that we're trying to solve for? And in a lot of cases, it's, we can't get through our entire schedule in a year. For example, if we're talking about kind of routine maintenance and inspection, how do we get through the entire schedule in a year with reductions in headcount, or without going over budget, or without shutting down a unit in the refinery, right? And all of that has to do with that kind of consultative approach that we take. And I'm always quick to remind people that I am not an energy sector subject matter expert, right? I have never worked in a refinery, but I am an unbiased third party who has expertise in software and specifically in the True Solutions platform. And I can kind of use the tools in my toolbox to build you a solution based on the information that you can share with me. So I love to talk to the users in the field. It's generally management or corporate who brings us into a problem, but I think consulting with the end users or the people who are actually going to be entrusted with using the solution day in and day out, that is where the greatest benefit to everyone comes from, is learning how these individuals work and what their pain points and struggles are so that we can try and overcome those.
Okay. Sounds amazing. So who was your role model in your career?
Oh, I don't really know that I've found one yet. I look up to a lot of people. I think that there's a ton of people in the industry, as well as within, leadership within my own organization. There are certainly people that I aspire to be like in certain ways, right? Whether it's their work ethic or their positive attitude or their kind of take no prisoners approach to sales and things like that. I think that I've been influenced by a great many people, but I'm not sure that I have found or even really want to find, aspirationally, a role model. I think that we can all get better in our own ways by playing to our own strengths every day.
Okay, so how do you play to your own strengths every day? How would you go about doing that?
So, like I said, I'm not an expert in oil and gas or in refining or in the downstream sector or in inspection or anything like that. But I think that my strengths are in problem solving, and also in my willingness to admit when I don't know, when I'm in over my head. So I think that a lot of people, and maybe even you, Michelle, since you invited me to this podcast, assume that I know a lot more than I do, right? Or that I'm an energy sector hero for some reason because of my broad depth of knowledge on the topic. And that's not really true. And I'll be the first person to tell you that. And I think that my honesty and my candor in doing so is one of my strengths. And then I think my ability to listen, to hear other people, and to kind of identify the problems or the challenges that they're facing based on a conversation, and kind of jumping right into identifying and solving for that problem is definitely a strength of mine. Because especially in software, we walk into situations where people want to solve for everything on day one, right? We want to eat the apple in one bite, and you can't do that, right? You have to start, and in order to start, you have to identify one particular problem that you want to solve. And it's hard for people sometimes to see the forest through the trees when they're faced with so many problems. And I think that identifying one that is solvable and easily solvable and will get everyone a quick win, right, is a great confidence booster. And that's always a great place to start, is, with something small that you can tackle, that's going to energize the team and encourage them to keep marching forward towards solving this problem.
Okay. Do you think it's important? Well, it's really good skills that you have, actually, but Because not a lot of people would admit if they were in over their head. Do you think it's an important thing? Do you think it's important for people to do?
Absolutely. I think that being honest with yourself as well as with your coworkers and your customers and partners and vendors, I think it's super important. And I think honesty builds trust also. And when I consult on these projects or I work with these various customers, it's really important to build trust early. And by nodding my head and smiling and pretending to understand, the conversations that are going on around me, I'm not helping myself or my customer. So asking someone to slow down or telling them that you're not familiar with what they're talking about, or reminding them that you're the expert in software, not in HF alkylation, for example. I think that those reminders and those nuggets of honesty go a really long way in building a successful partnership.
That's really good advice, actually.
Well, thank you.
So what is the most challenging thing about your current role, and how do you handle it?
So I think, right now we're kind of transitioning. So for the last, 10 or so years, I've been working in a position where I'm building custom solutions for individual customers, right? So someone comes to me and they say, we have nothing and we want you to build this solution for us from the ground up. And I've been doing custom work for a long time. And that has been relatively easy because the customers are telling me exactly what they want, right? And now I am trying to build a more standardized product offering for the entire energy sector. So kind of an out-of-the-box solution that will appeal to a broader audience, less custom, more repeatable. And that is really requiring me to learn a lot more about the industry and about compliance and about regulations within the industry and about work processes and kind of go out and seek this information on my own rather than having it be brought to me, by a customer. That's definitely a challenge that's new to me and something that I'm facing currently, trying to better myself and broaden my knowledge of the industry, which I've been in, for almost 10 years, but I haven't really been boots on the ground a part of. So immersing myself in the energy sector a little bit more is definitely something that I'm working on and something that continues to challenge me on a regular basis.
Okay, so how do you keep abreast of new technology in the oil and gas or the energy sector?
So I do a lot of traveling, a lot of trade shows and customer events. I, go to the API standards meetings to just sit in the room with people who use this technology and understand how they're using it and, what new petroleum, industry standards are coming out each year, and how that affects the customer. I think really hearing it in their words and seeing it through their eyes is certainly helpful and really important. And also at these events, walking around the trade show, there's always a trade show component at these events, and walking around and talking to other vendors and other players in the industry and learning what they're doing or what their products offer, how they're working to solve for these problems in our industry as well, and kind of networking and making connections there to figure out maybe how my software can integrate with some alarms that you have for, overfill protection or fire prevention or devices or gauges or robots or drones, kind of all of this technology that is popping up in the industry now, kind of just keeping abreast of all of that and making face-to-face connections with people at these industry-specific events.
No, that sounds amazing. Is there anything that you still want to achieve in your career?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I have a lot of things that I want to do, getting this product out, right? So working with all of my colleagues and teammates on the technical and development side to kind of release a product that has broad appeal and solves problems in a large scale way. That's kind of my immediate term goal, right? To get this all out, and then just to continue to learn and grow within the industry, and also to, kind of make a path that's a little more inclusive and encourages more women to join the industry, I think is a goal I have for myself. I'm not really sure how to accomplish that yet or what that looks like. But, over the last couple of years, I've seen attendance, the amount of women that are becoming members to these sort of API and AFPM organizations, it's on the rise. There's, more women in attendance at these conferences. The number of female engineers is increasing. And I think that those are all really, really great signs of what's to come in terms of maybe diversifying the industry a little bit in the next 5 to 10 years.
Okay, that sounds amazing. Do you have any ideas how you're going to encourage younger women to come into the industry? Because especially in the UK, I see that a lot more women are being engineers. There's a lot of them coming through now, which is very encouraging, I think.
Yeah, no, I think so too. I have 2 daughters myself. I think just the opportunities that they're given now, or that the emphasis that's being put on STEM and on engineering for all young children is far greater now than it ever was, when I was growing up. And I think kind of not pushing them towards those opportunities, but gently guiding them to explore those kinds of things is certainly helpful. So I think starting young and opening all kids' minds to the possibilities of science and technology and coding, but also working with their hands, right? Kind of different labor related jobs. Working with your hands and learning to be more hands-on at a young age, I think is really important. With the older group, the college age or the right out of college kind of group, I think that, just like you said, seeing so many more female engineers or females in the industry as a whole is really encouraging. And I think that creating networking groups or groups for like-minded young female engineers and letting them know that there is a place for them here and welcoming them, because I remember the first time I walked into one of these events, and it was not uncommon for me to be the only woman or the only woman in any of these rooms, and kind of just, building a bridge for those younger women and letting them know that, they're not alone in this, that we're all here to support each other and kind of grow a space for ourselves. I think that will all happen in good time.
Yeah, I think so too, actually. So if you were going to hire someone, a graduate or senior, what kind of values would you look for the person?
Yeah. For the type of work that I do specifically, I think a good listener is really important, because in this industry, sometimes people don't know what they want, right? They can say it and explain to you all day what they do, but they can't identify what the problem is that they're trying to solve. So being a good listener and having kind of strong problem solving skills is definitely important. The ability to prioritize. So working on projects in a prioritized order and being able to shift from one project to another when things kind of heat up or speed up is also really important. And then again, just that ability to be candid and honest, both with yourself, with your boss, with your colleagues and your customers, is really important. I tell my kids this all the time, there's nothing wrong with saying, I don't know. right? It's perfectly reasonable. No one expects you to know everything. So rather than pretending like you know, saying that you don't know, acknowledging that you're not educated enough on the topic, or being willing to admit that there's someone who knows more about it than you do, who can provide a better answer. It's not only acceptable, I think it's preferable, right? To say, I don't know, but I'll find out. I think, honesty builds trust and builds bridges in all areas. And it's certainly not something that should be undervalued.
I do agree with your last statement that you said, is that I think it's better for you to be able to go and find out, because not everybody knows everything. So it's probably better. It is better for you to go and find out that, being able to go and find out the answer to a problem rather than know it yourself.
Right. And being able to go and find something out, right? That's a skill set all in its own.
That's what I was going to say. It's a skill on its own.
You're being resourceful, and you're learning how to ask questions, and you're demonstrating your ability to work with others or source information. That is like a really lost, I feel like that skill set is really lost on a lot of young people who just Google everything or get this information. I don't know how people find things out these days, but I remember the days of having to like go look through books in the library and encyclopedias and things, and kind of in this quick instant gratification generation, right, where the internet knows all the answers, being able to go and find things and be resourceful is a really valuable skill.
It is. And knowing, I think it's important that you know where to get the answer quite quickly. Like who has all the knowledge, more than being sitting there trying to look it up online. I think it's probably more important. It also teaches you, networking as well.
Yes. And that's talking to people, right? The art of conversation is another thing that is that skill is kind of, people who have it are few and far between, right? They're so used to texting and emailing and not actually exchanging ideas or conversation in the old fashioned way. That goes a long way as well. I think this oil and gas or energy sector is still a little bit old school. So, and they want to meet people and they want to have conversations, be they on Zoom or over the phone or face to face. They want to talk. They don't want to text or email. So verbal, your verbal skills and your ability to start and carry a conversation, I think is also really important.
I think so too. Yeah, the oil industry, energy sector, they do love their meetings.
They do, yes.
Yep. So how would you handle a meeting, actually, for any of our young listeners?
Yeah. I think face-to-face, are we talking?
Well, we're still, some of us here are still Zoom meetings.
Yeah.
But how would you typically prepare for a meeting?
So I would always, I always do a little research, right? Be resourceful, try and know about who you're meeting with, the business that they're in, any kind of newsworthy things that are going on in the industry or within that company. Being prepared, right, goes a long way. And also, if you're meeting on Zoom, I think having your camera on, as much as it's uncomfortable, it really humanizes you a little bit, right? So having your camera on in a meeting and showing or demonstrating to the people that you're meeting with that you're engaged and you're listening and that they have your full attention, I think that is really important. I'm a big fan of eye contact, and I know it's tougher over Zoom or in a virtual meeting, but I do think eye contact is really important. Looking a person in the eye when they're talking or when you're talking to them. I think that goes a really long way. And just, being engaged. Don't be playing on your phone or checking your email or, all these things. Be an active participant in the conversation or an active listener, if that's your role. But in whatever capacity, you should always demonstrate engagement, that where you are and who you're talking to is the most important thing that's going on in your world at that moment.
I was going to ask, because there is maybe some younger people that might be quite shy to maybe at the start of their career maybe have an opinion or talk in a meeting. How would you get over that? Even some people who are older have the same problem, actually.
Yeah. No, it definitely is a challenge. And I think, again, to kind of go back to the honesty portion, right? Asking a question is a really good way to demonstrate that you're listening. And also, if you're one of the youngest or newest people in an organization or in a meeting room, again, no one expects you to know everything. So I think just a clarifying question or asking, so do you mean that, even if it's restating something, is a really good way to introduce yourself into the conversation or to gain knowledge, right? To say, oh, I'm sorry, I'm not familiar with that process. Can you explain it to me a little bit more? I think it's also flattering to people sometimes to know that they're kind of an expert, right, on a certain topic. So you're not only increasing your own knowledge, but you're kind of complimenting the person who's maybe leading the conversation by asking them to share some more of their expertise with you.
Yeah, that's correct as well. I do agree with that. So have you ever encountered any career disasters?
Disasters. I mean, not yet, but the day is still young. There hasn't been anything that I would say has been disastrous. Certainly there are emergencies and fire drills and things that kind of pop up that you wish wouldn't happen. COVID was a whole disaster for us. We had a large refinery heading into turnaround that I had plans to be on site with them to train all of their users and all of the contractors and offer my support for the first several days of this turnaround event. And, we went into lockdown, right? So I was not allowed, there were no visitors or no outside vendors or anything like this allowed into the refinery during this time. And that was definitely something that I was nervous about. It could have been disastrous, but we did everything virtually. I sat in a Zoom room, I don't know, maybe for 16 hours a day. And I was just up on the screen in a trailer, offering support remotely, asking people how things were going, running impromptu training sessions. It was unforeseen and unprecedented, but we rolled with the punches, right? The kind of the show must go on. The work didn't stop. And we came out on the other side, successful, I think, because of everyone's willingness to pitch in, maybe more than they had originally planned on, and because of their, ability to help and to think on their feet. And it went, I think, as smoothly as it could in a situation like that.
I do agree, actually. I think that the way a lot of people worked during COVID was actually probably a lot different to how we'd been used to working for years before. I think there was a lot more on team, reliance on each other.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, people were at home with small children and unable to fill obligations that they normally filled. And those people who had no children or grown children, were able to step up and support their teammates through kind of all these turbulent times and last minute changes in schedule. And now my whole family has COVID and we're down for the count and we need somebody to step up here. I think everybody, I'm very lucky to work in an organization where everyone was willing to pitch in, right? And to be flexible and to step up when they needed to and demonstrate that so that we could all have the confidence to know that should we have to in any, whether it be for COVID or any other reason, right, down the road, that we have a team behind us who is going to pitch in and is going to help out and support us and kind of get us through whatever it is that is challenging us at that moment.
Yeah, I agree. Actually, I do agree with that.
Yeah, it could have been terrible, and I think if you maybe didn't have that type of support system or didn't know that you had that type of support system, COVID could have gone a lot differently for people. But I think, everyone just demonstrated their willingness to help and to learn and to support each other. And now I think because of that, we're all back in the office and we have this really awesome company culture and this collaborative environment because we had been through this experience together. And we knew that everybody had demonstrated their support for one another. And I think it kind of gave us a boost as a team and maybe instilled a lot more trust in our coworkers, than we had originally had.
I agree. I think that even in my work as well, I think we all have a better team working environment, probably due to COVID, because we did all pitch in and help support each other the best we could.
Yeah. And we all kind of, I think everyone was vulnerable in that time, right? So people are working at their kitchen tables with their, kids and pets and multi-generational families in the background. And we were kind of seeing a peek behind the curtain, if you will, like even from our leadership and our CEO and, our president, and kind of seeing a sneak into their personal lives, maybe, which humanized them a little bit more than we're used to seeing, from 9 to 5 in the office environment. And I think we all saw each other a little bit or see each other a little bit differently after that experience.
Yeah, I think so too. So what is your zone of genius? What are you most good at?
Oh, ugh. I don't know. I think it's relating to people, maybe. I think I excel in relationship building and, like getting to know people. And I think that goes a long way in personal and professional settings. But professionally, I think people, let their guard down a little bit more with me sometimes because we're able to have these honest human conversations and we're able to find something that almost always, not everybody, but almost always, I can find some kind of common ground to connect with people on. And I think that goes a long way in building a relationship, especially a professional relationship, one built on trust and honesty and mutual respect. And I think that's really important.
Yeah, I agree, actually. So I was going to ask you, if you can turn back time, would you change anything?
Anything?
Would you?
I kind of wish I would, looking back, hindsight being what it is, I guess I wish I would have entered this industry sooner. I didn't really think that based on my education and my, experiences in childhood and growing up and college, I didn't really think that I had anything necessarily to offer to this industry. I was more, a liberal arts major. I studied Spanish and literature, and I didn't see how it would be possible for my skill sets to line up with something in industrial process or in anything science related or engineering wise, or, that just, it wasn't the world that I grew up in. I didn't grow up near an oil refinery or have any family members who worked in the energy sector. I live in Missouri. It's, it's not like I grew up in Houston where big oil and energy was all around me. And I just by osmosis, felt that growing up. It was very new to me. It was nothing I had been exposed to. And I wish that maybe I would have known about opportunities in the industry sooner or had explored job opportunities outside of my immediate comfort zone. Because I think I find it also interesting that I think maybe I would have unearthed kind of a passion for it sooner.
Okay. So what advice would you give anybody that was looking to come into the energy sector?
I would say, like, don't count yourself out, regardless of what is holding you back or what makes you think that you shouldn't or couldn't contribute in this industry. I think that there's a huge shift in energy right now. Kind of all of the culture keepers or the kind of baby boomer generation that holds all of this industry knowledge and expertise, all of the pros who have been doing this for 40 plus years, they're all approaching retirement age now. And they're kind of leaving the industry en masse, which creates huge opportunity for young people to enter the field. And that means young people of all backgrounds with all different types of experiences. Everything is transitioning green right now, right? A lot of people are changing their practices to be more environmentally focused, to focus more on employee health and safety. The turnover or the uptick in women entering the industry is really huge right now. So I think it's kind of like a blank slate in the energy sector right now. And so whether or not you think that you may or may not be a fit for this industry based on your interests or your background or your gender, I think all of that kind of is going out the window as the whole industry kind of turns over a new leaf in terms of, environment and digitalization efforts and diversity initiatives and kind of all of these things that are taking place within oil and gas right now.
Okay, that's excellent advice. Well, that's all the questions I have today. I would like to thank Kate for your time.
Thanks so much for having me. It was great.
That brings us to the end of another episode. Thanks for listening and see you next week. That brings us to the end of another episode. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed the show, I'd like to gently encourage you to leave a 5-star rating wherever you listen to podcasts and share the show with another person. You can also follow me on LinkedIn or via my website, www.michellefraserconsultancy.com. Thanks again for listening and see you next week.